So the average cost of a home in the UK is around £362,452 according to Rightmove data, which for many based on their income or savings makes the possibility of buying a house seem impossible. However, in today's video, my friends, we will look at 7 ways to get a discount on buying your first home that could work for some of you right now in order to get yourself on that property ladder sooner than you think. Now, you've probably heard me speak about the Right to Buy scheme a few times on this channel, but this scheme could give people up to 70% discount on their homes. It's a government initiative that lets council tenants buy the property that they're currently renting in. But please note, the rules are slightly different for Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. However, you can apply to buy your home if it's your main or only home, it's self-contained, you're a secure tenant, or you've had a public sector landlord for 3 years. And just note, these 3 years do not have to be in a row. Now, you can also make joint applications with someone who shares your tenancy, or also 3 family members who have lived with you for the past 12 months, even if they don't share that tenancy. So let's talk about discounts. Firstly, the maximum discount is £87,200 across England, although London allows up to £116,200 in some of its boroughs. And also worth noting is, in relation to discounts, it does increase each April according to the CPI, i.e. the Consumer Price Index. However, if you are doing this or you're looking to do this and you're thinking maybe I could quickly flip this, remember, if you do sell it within 5 years, you usually have to repay some or all of the discount too. Now, the discount itself depends on how long you've been a tenant with that public sector landlord, the type of property you're buying, i.e. is it a flat or a house, and of course the value of the home. What I'm going to do is I'll link the calculator in the description so you can play around with that if you need, and I will quickly discuss the discount levels for houses and flats. Now, with a house, you can get 35% discount if you've been a public sector tenant for between 3 to 5 years. After 5 years, the discount does actually go up by 1% every year, up to a maximum of 70%, or as I mentioned earlier, £87,200 across England and £116,200 in London boroughs. However, with flats, you can get 50% discount if you've been a public sector tenant for between 3 to 5 years. And it's slightly different here because after 5 years, the discount goes up 2% for every year that you've been a public sector tenant. Again, the maximum limits of £87,200 across England and £116,200 in London do still apply. Now, if you want to do this, you need to fill in the Right to Buy application form, which is a RTB1 notice, and then send that to your landlord. Moving on. Now, this is very similar to the Right to Buy, except this applies if you are currently renting from a housing association. Now, in terms of eligibility, my friends, you have to have lived in that home for at least 3 years. You can get a discount between £9,000 and £16,000 on the price of your property, and the amount of discount you get obviously depends on where you live in the UK. But just note that your discount might be reduced if you've used the Right to Acquire or Right to Buy in the past. The First Home Scheme. Now, this scheme is pretty cool because you're able to potentially buy a home for 30 to 50% less than the market value. Now, the home itself can be a new home built by a developer or a home you buy from someone else who originally bought it as part of the scheme. Now, the First Home Scheme, I must say, my friends, is only available in England. And in terms of eligibility, you must be 18 years or older, a first-time buyer, able to get a mortgage for at least half the price of that home, and you must be buying the home as part of a household where the total income is no more than £80,000 or £90,000 if you live in London. Now, the local council may also set some eligibility conditions too. For example, some councils may prioritise giving first home discounts to essential workers, people who live in that area already, or even those on lower incomes. And just note, my friends, there are some exemptions for armed forces and their families, which I'll just throw up on the screen right now. So, in terms of how it works, you can look for new homes in the area that are advertised by developers as part of the First Home Scheme. Developers offer these homes to first-time buyers with 30 to 50% of the market value taken off the price. Every home that's sold is valued by an independent surveyor to make sure the discount is based on the actual market value. Now, the homes cannot cost more than $420,000 in London or $250,000 anywhere else in England after the discount has been applied. And also, you can only sell the home to someone who is eligible to buy a first home, and you must give them the same percentage discount that you got based on the home's market value at the time of the sale. So again, another important point to wrap your head around. Now, if you are interested in this, you're probably wondering how you can apply. So the first thing you want to do is contact the developer or estate agent if you're buying from a previous first home buyer, and tell them that obviously you want to buy using the First Home Scheme. They'll then help you complete the application and send that to the local council. You'll then have to pay a fee if the first home you want to buy is a new build, and the amount, of course, is set by the developer. You'll then get the feedback if your application is unsuccessful. So that's worth noting as well. So don't worry too much about that. Now, in terms of eligibility, the council is obviously going to check all of that. they'll contact you to let you know their decision, and they'll also contact the developer and your mortgage advisor. But generally, other than that, the process is pretty similar to just buying a house. But if you have any questions, please do drop them down below. Next up. Now, this is surprisingly unknown to many people, but if you're a tenant, it's definitely worth speaking to your landlord about this, or if it's something that they offer. And although I haven't always done this with all my properties, I have offered this to certain tenants who have really shown an interest in wanting to purchase that home at some stage. It allows tenants who want to get on the ladder in the future, but can't buy now, either due to their deposit or maybe change of jobs, for example. And essentially, it just gives that tenant the confidence that they're not just going to be renting for the foreseeable future, and they do have the prospect of buying that particular home. And essentially, as a landlord, and I'll just use myself for this example, what I would do is I would propose to the tenant that they can rent it from me for, let's just say, 10 years. Obviously, the period can change, but they then have the right to eventually buy the property at an agreed price that myself and the tenant agree upon. So let's say the property is currently 200,000. We could maybe sit down and say, well, you have a 10-year option where you can buy this house, and you can buy it for, I don't know, let's say 220,000. I'm just using random numbers here, guys. Now, once this is agreed and all the paperwork signed, that tenant has the option to buy within those 10 years for 220,000. Now, of course, if the property value is worth more, they would still be buying it at £220,000. So it's obviously their gain, and you're only going to ever get the agreed price. I am happy to do more videos on this if you need more of an explanation, but it's definitely something worth looking into. Moving on, lifetime ISAs. Now, it's not so much a discount from a property, but more of a way of getting free cash from the government, which, let's face it, doesn't come around every day. Now, you can use the lifetime ISA to buy your first home or save it for later in life. And in terms of eligibility, you must be 18 or over, but under 40 to open up a lifetime ISA. Now, what's great about this is you can put £4,000 each year into this until you're 50, but you must make your first payment into the ISA before you're 40. Now, the government will add a 25% bonus to your savings up to a maximum of £1,000 a year. And just note, the lifetime ISA limit of 4,000 counts towards your annual ISA limit as well, which as of the 2022 and 2023 tax year is £20,000. Now, you can hold cash or stocks and shares in your lifetime ISA as well, or you can have a combination of both. But when you turn 50, you will not be able to pay into your lifetime ISA, or sadly, my friends, earn that 25% bonus. Your account will stay open and your savings will earn interest or investment returns depending on how you set it up. And there's much more information you can obviously find on the internet around this, but let's talk about how we can utilize that to buy your first home. You can use the savings to help you buy your first home if, and there are some conditions, my friends, the property costs £450,000 or less, and you can buy the property at least 12 months after you make your first payment into the lifetime ISA. And you would also use a conveyancer or a solicitor to act on your behalf for that purchase, and the ISA provider will pay the funds directly to them. And finally, my friends, you must use this if you're buying with a mortgage. Now, you can buy this with somebody else, and I will throw some literature on the screen if you are interested, of course, in that. And of course, you can also save it for later in life. But as this video is about buying a property, I'm just going to leave that there for a few moments and move on to the next point. So the next one is shared ownership. And I have actually done a video on this, which was pretty old, and there's probably some poor jokes and editing in there, but it's definitely worth looking at, my friends. I know this has worked for many people, but it's also one that has some disadvantages too. For many people, yes, it's a great way to get your foothold on the property ladder. And that's why in certain areas where prices seem out of reach, people often go with this approach. But please be mindful of where we are in terms of the property market, in terms of all the pros and cons, if you are considering going down this route. But it's definitely worth checking that video out after this. And finally, one that many people actually overlook, surprisingly, and I've got accustomed to as a property investor, is haggling. You'll be surprised at how much cheaper you can get properties for if you try. If you get your first offer accepted, that should make you want to scream at yourself, my friends, because it means you could have probably got it lower. So it's important to try to see the seller's pain points and get as close to their minimum offer as possible. I'm happy to do more videos on this, but that's a wrap for today, and I hope this was useful.